It's great to be here at Zebu Live. It feels almost like a kind of rock star conference type thing, especially if you come from the House of Lords. Right now, I should be sitting in Lords Questions. It'd be a very different atmosphere. But things have changed. Before I start, I was quite interested listening to Joey. Is he still here? Is Joey still here? Ah, Joey, yeah. Arrogance of parliamentarians, I heard you say. I think what you might feel is that, and you touched on it, the lack of knowledge from parliamentarians, and that might be converted into arrogance, that we don't understand, or they don't understand this world. And I think you were saying that. They don't understand the technology, they don't understand the innovation and the business models, and therefore they don't understand the operations. And that also can probably be said for maybe regulators as well. But that's the challenge when you're at the bleeding edge of things that are changing. And I'm very fortunate I have this huge, huge privilege of sitting in the House of Lords. It's not something I ever envisaged doing, but I am. But for the last almost 30 years in my career, I just happened to be a bit Forrest Gump-esque in the right place at the right time when certain technology evolved. And what do I mean by that? Well, in 2000, yes, the year 2000, I joined a program that was dealing with upgrading the infrastructure around tickets and ticket offices and stuff on the London Underground. And I spent 3 years on that program. And eventually, we delivered the Oyster card, the first ever contactless technology in the Western world. The only other city in the world, the only other place in the world that had something like that was Hong Kong. It had octopus. Don't ask me why the nautical themes, that's just good marketing. But what we were doing was bringing together, yes, this new form of technology, but we were bringing e-money to the fore. First time ever. And that started a chain reaction to probably one of the places where we are now, where the world as we know it and digital money and digital finance is changing dramatically. But let's go back a bit. The City of London. And by the way, in the middle of that, after a few years, I worked at City Hall. I worked for a man called Boris Johnson. I was waiting for that. When he was mayor of London, there were a lot more cheers. And I worked for him when he was mayor of London. So the bikes, the buses, Crossrail, now the Elizabeth line, getting electric vehicles onto the streets of London, these are all things I was involved in because I led the transport brief. But what was equally, if not more important to me, was the technology behind all of these initiatives, which is why in 2010, I convinced the mayor then that we should set up the digital office for London. We could see what was emerging in Shoreditch, what was then called Silicon Roundabout. We worked on making that tech city. We worked on getting investment into London. We worked on setting up the London data store. These were the foundational elements in around 2010 to help drive that sort of ecosystem of innovation and change and creativity. But even before that, look, London has been the heart of global finance for centuries, right? From the shipping and coffee houses of the 1600s to, the latter day legal infrastructure I was mentioned earlier, and the financial district of the city. We have been preeminent, and yes, probably slightly arrogant as a city in terms of our global position. But guess what? The world changes. And nowadays, we're standing at a defining moment. And I'm sure most of you understand this. But the city's center, or the city's global positioning is moving. This year, for the first time, the UK slipped from second to third in the global fintech investment hierarchy. Overtaken by, who are we overtaken by? Does anyone know? Dubai, yeah, UAE. And why? Why? Because they did a massive single $2 billion deal by Binance. Now, that one-off deal shifted the tipping point between us. Now, I wouldn't say that's a cause for despair. It is a wake-up call to us because the money markets are becoming truly borderless. We always say that, all that stuff, money never sleeps and money moves around. Well, guess what? The reality is that money doesn't care about borders anymore. And there is an absolute race in leadership in this new money economy. So where does it take us now? We're talking, the world of, and I'm sure you guys know this probably even better than I do, programmable money, what's happening with crypto, tokenized assets, digital currencies, CBDCs, you name it, there's a new model of money around there for it. And what does it effectively trying to do? We're trying to be ever more efficient in trade. Frictionless is the critical thing that we look at, because for decades, centuries, we've had these wonderful banking systems. Wonder's doing a lot of effort there in that heavy lifting, wonderful banking systems, because, you know, when you want to move that money, how hard is it? How difficult is it into a traditional world of money? And there's this sort of pent-up frustration, which is now being coupled with new technology that's enabling change to happen and almost bypassing that traditional world. But let's be clear, technology alone will not define who wins and who loses in this race. What's going to be defining? Anyone know? Regulate. Who said that? Clever man, yes. Regulation. Now, do we want loads of regulation? Yes. Not so clever man. Well, look, it's not about, it's a really important point. It's not about the amount of regulation. What is it about? It's about having the right kind of regulation, smart regulation, appropriate regulation. What is the point of regulation? It's to protect people from if there's a failure or if there's undue risk. But that shouldn't mean that regulation should stop risk happening or should stop innovation. Yet that sometimes gets lost in the noise of regulatory models. So that's why in Parliament, and I say this, I am, a rather new peer. I'm still finding my way around. I'll make mistakes. I'll get things wrong, lots of them. But if you're not there to shake things up and you're not there to change the system, what are you there for? So in Parliament, I am now co-chair of an all-party parliamentary group called Digital Markets, Digital Money. Why? Because I believe in the future of digital markets and digital money. And what we have to do is really understand how are we going to transform our approach to the regulatory environment to take advantage of what's happening in the new world of digital markets and digital money. And for that, I look to all of you. And this is actually a plea for help, because parliamentarians, we need your help. Coming back to that earlier point, it's not arrogance, it's about being uninformed. We need to be better informed. We need to spend more time with businesses, entrepreneurs, innovators, those risk takers, those people who are developing the new platforms, the new technologies, so that we can understand where the opportunity and the advantages for UK PLC and the City of London in the future, and establish regulatory frameworks that support it. Now, I have to say, our regulators, and I do talk to them quite regularly, are trying to do the right thing. They are trying to establish a sense of opportunity that can help. But they don't have all the answers. They will need your help. Because without this, that slipping to third place is only going to continue for the City of London. And that's not the best thing for this country or for innovators and developers here. We have the deep history. We have the assets of our legal infrastructure of common law that everywhere around the world is looking to utilize. But this world is fleet of foot and can move to any jurisdiction. I was in Dubai last week at GITEX. Anyone been to GITEX? Yeah, and then the North Expanded Star blockchain conference there. Wow, the scale, the opportunity, the interest, the energy, immense. And it's going to be very easy for these industries and these businesses to move. I want them to succeed here. I want UK PLC, I want the future of the UK to be, the UK economy to revolve around the digital markets and to enable them, because we have all the other assets. We definitely have the talent as well, I have to say. We have the universities, the skills, the young people, the people with the innovation to succeed here. We don't want people to be having to go somewhere else to do that. So, the vision for the future of the City of London, it's not about out there. It's about you guys here helping us guys, the regulators, the parliamentarians, and everyone else shape a worldview in the City of London that can help us succeed. And I hope you'll all play your part in that. Thank you very much.
So I was asked to ask a question. We've got 5 minutes, so I said I would jump up. You might have to listen very carefully and not just daydream during your talk. Well, I think what's interesting is that Joey Garcia previously said London needed to get a move on, because it's no advantage being like your 32nd mover. You have to be first or second. So how do you view, given the fact that London has a deep, deep history in finance, huge talent, as you say, huge innovation, huge interest, you're outside of the EU and you're outside of the US, what can London learn from the mistakes that the EU is making or that America is making? Or what can you learn from the things that they're doing right?
Yeah, look, great question. And actually, I was in Washington for President Trump's inauguration because I could see the winds of change coming through what he was trying to do and the messages that we've seen coming out around the world of crypto and digital assets in the US. I have a lot of friends, and I've worked in Europe around some of the regulatory approaches that the EU has taken, particularly, say, around AI. And they have not got it right in Europe. We are all blissfully aware of that. I've been saying this for quite a long time. I heard from even people who actually wrote the EU AI Act pretty quickly realizing that the heavy burden of regulation that they were placing, though welcomed by some of the big organizations, was taking the wind out of investment, taking the wind out of those innovators that were still trying to achieve something. And yes, we're not absolutely first movers, but we can learn from these two major environments about how to establish our own framework. And I will say this, in terms of, say, for example, AI, I do congratulate the government for not going quick and fast on regulating. There are lots of people calling for more heavy regulation around this. But we run the risk of stifling those new opportunities. So it is about finding that balance, but from a financial services perspective and a fintech perspective, I think we're a lot further on. There's been a lot of groundwork done in this world over the last 10 years already. The question is, how do we convert that into the use cases that start opening up the market in a way that people feel confident? Actually, I'm going to ask a question. How many people have a crypto stake in this room? I thought there'd be more. Come on, this is Zebu Live, right? I thought
There are lots of new people.
there are, yeah. Well, actually, in the UK at the moment, I believe 15% of the population already have a crypto stake. So this is something that's growing, it's happening. But if you did honestly walk down the street and talk to people about crypto, they really wouldn't have an understanding. And I think we have to make that transition from a technology and a niche area of a market to something that is available, understood by the mass of the population so they can feel they can have part of it. Just because that happened with ChatGPT for AI. November 2022, that switch flicked. And we've been working in AI for years and machine learning and developing it. But that interface, that opening of the market to the public and then feeling, this is something I can use, that needs to happen for digital currencies.
And a second question, sort of follow-up. You compare Europe, which is very methodical, and I live in Europe as in the EU, and then you compare London, which would also be using the rules. What are the benefits of the more maverick approach in the US, where it's led by Trump and his sons? And is there? I mean, he's captured the imagination. So perhaps the people on the street might be more positive towards stablecoins and crypto.
Yeah, look, there's undoubtedly a sort of litigation view, a risk-based view that the US has taken, but it's turbocharged their ability to get US dollar stablecoins out there. So, at the beginning of this year, I think 200 billion were out there. By September, 280 billion, and we're seeing that only go up. The number's 1.9 trillion potentially by the end of this decade. So the question we have to, and that's why I raised the question in Parliament last week, was, well, what's our strategy on this? How do we want to play? And I could probably share with you guys, there was a lot of mixed views in the chamber around stablecoins. A lot of my fellow peers sort of hearing the term for the first time. The minister himself acknowledged he'd had to learn a lot about a new topic to answer the question. But we have to get on with this. Right. We do have to pick up the pace. We have to understand what's happening in the rest of the world. We have to understand what agility, why corporates are leveraging stablecoins to be able to move money much quicker with a lot more freedom, 24/7, all the advantages it's bringing, and it's being backed by US dollars. So where does the UK want to play? We need to nail that question down.
Well, I think what you're doing is very important because there are many stakeholders in this business in moving adoption forward. There's like people here today who are keen, and they're entrepreneurs, they're founders, regulators, and parliamentarians. So I think I'd like to send a vote of congratulation and thanks from the community here, saying thank you for bringing it up in the Parliament here. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thanks.